which I think is really important, because if we look, oftentimes we think of spiritual, we think it's like separate from us or outside of that, not related to our becoming the most us we could be. Becoming the most me I could be is possibly the most spiritual thing I could do in the way that we're looking at it. And oftentimes when we talk about spiritual transcendent principles like love, that we're often told to be loving as if, you should be loving, as if you're not. As if that isn't who you are inside, as if that's not. Because if we develop, and I think many of you can see this in your own development, as we develop and tend to unfinished business, we become naturally more loving. We're clearer, we're less projecting, we're meeting our own needs, we're not punishing people for not meeting our needs, we're taking responsibility as we keep moving and developing that. There's nothing else, we're preparing ourselves to love more fully. Telling the truth prepares us to love more fully. Affirming ourselves, going up that ladder and working on that helps us to become more, not only more us, but also more loving and more, what we traditionally call more spiritual. We become more honest. We become more us. We become more real. We become more authentic. There's more of us to be in relationship. And that through that, we do fulfill our nature, which ultimately I think is love. But not on top of or separate, but through that development in that way, which I think is really beautiful. So can we just applaud Joan for her models for us and your buddies for sharing with you? All right. So you're ready to kind of pull this back together in a particular way? You ready to go this next step? We're not done with the existentialists yet. I know you were hoping that we were done with these strange sounding names, but there's a little bit more the existentialists have to teach us about this whole thing about living a life of purpose and spirituality. Okay, so what did the existentialists say that we have to do in order to have this life of purpose and have a sense of meaning? What do we got to do? We got to make a decision. We have to choose. And then we have to make this fundamental choice, but what else did they tell us? Do we make it once and that's it? No. Over and over and over again. And how often are we confronted with this choice? Every single moment. Come on. So, yes, it's an opportunity. But let's look at that. Because what they talk about is that really about fulfilling our nature, which is what we're talking about in the clip, and what Sartra's talking about, our life project, this thing, this focus, this perspective we have of making of our life this project, this, as we call the quest, this quest that's driven by who can I become, what's possible for me to really go on this quest of determining my possibilities is something that you co-create in that way. And what they talk about is that every moment we have a choice that hopefully is guided by this deeper commitment that we have, more often than not. But every moment we have a choice to escape, we have a choice to numb ourselves, we have a choice to flee from our selfhood that they talked about, or we have a choice to be ourselves, we have a choice to become. That every moment in time presents us with, how many of you just want to throw up just thinking about all these choices? Can I just see that right now? How many of you are too numb right now in your sinking thinking or whatever that you don't even know what I'm asking you? You're just raising your hand because somebody next to you raised their hand. So, but here's the piece I really want us to get, and we're going to work with this in a way, and you're going to be playing with this a little bit later tonight as you do your assignment. So listen up. This is going to help you as we kind of get this concept as we get ready a little bit later to do that. So every moment we have a choice to practice what we've already done, to do the familiar, to be comfortable, to be rote, to be our false self, to do what we've always done, think what we've always thought, feel what we've always felt. And soft addictions are magnificent that way because they're very predictable. We know exactly what state we're going to get into or whatever. So we have that choice between doing that which we've already done, that's the rehearsed aspects of ours, or we have the choice to fulfill our nature. We have that choice of stepping into the unknown, to do that which we have not done before, to do that which is reaching into our potential. Potential means it's not manifest yet. Potential means it's more than what I already know right now. It's a part of me I haven't even discovered yet. That every moment I have a choice between doing that which is comfortable and familiar and seemingly secure, Or I have a choice of reaching into that potential, discovering who I could be, developing that sense of selfhood, stepping into that possible life project, becoming a me I haven't even met yet. And what we've called my next what? Most radiant self. That I have a choice between being who I've already been or stepping into my next most radiant self that I have not even met yet. Now, given that choice, just intellectually, if you didn't have to do anything, which choice would you choose? Next most radiant self or same old, same old? Which one would it be? So if you didn't have to do anything and there weren't any, so how many of you would choose next most radiant self? Door number 1. Okay, all right. And given the choice that you don't have to feel anything or do anything, how many of you would choose same old, same old? All right, so we have the different, how many would choose to live the Groundhog Day movie? How many of you have lived the Groundhog movie? I'll have that same old ruts and routines. So that's a choice that we have. But what they say, that in order to do this choice, and Kierkegaard named this. So now you're not going to like Kierkegaard, okay? We liked him before, but we're not going to like him now because Kierkegaard named this as what happens. That there's a sense, when we start to sense the possibilities, that possibility of fulfilling our nature, that sense of potential, that sense of possibility, that sense of adventure, that sense of becoming, part of us is what? We're kind of, yeah, part of us is kind of happy or thrilled with the possibility in that way. But the minute we start picturing those possibilities, what comes up? What feeling? Fear. And how do we feel with fear? How do we manifest it on a more daily basis? Anxious. So what Kierkegaard calls this, he said, the minute that we start to get a glimpse, even contemplate there might be something more, that I could be something more, there's more of me, a potential, a future me I haven't even met, something beyond my own even understanding, that the moment we start to feel, that upset is so part of our human condition, and he describes that feeling of that upset as existential anxiety. Kierkegaard. The others would call this, but existential anxiety, that part of us that knows there's something more, but the moment we start to even think about it, we become anxious. Because we're talking about going into the unknown, taking a risk, doing something we haven't done before. So when I say it that way, then, you know, who wants to be existentially anxious? How many of you can recognize that feeling of upset inside yourself? So would you say to someone near you, I've experienced existential anxiety? Not just normal run-of-the-mill anxiety, I'll have you know, but I've had existential anxiety. Oh, I have experienced existential anxiety. Okay, anyone who's ever experienced a possibility of existential anxiety, raise your hand. All right, great, perfect. So we know this, like this possibility of our becoming fills us the minute we even think about it. How many of you can actually feel like right now, even in the conversation? Many of you, all right. So we have that sense of existential anxiety. Every time we have that choice of becoming, or we're faced with that. But however, if we hold back that desire for fulfilling our nature, our potential, if we numb that in some way, if we choose to be that which we've already done, the safe and familiar and the comfortable, the existentialists say that we experience ontological guilt. Ontological guilt. And I think all of us know this feeling of ontological guilt, that feeling like, oh, I could have done that. That place where you know you missed an opportunity. That feeling of, oh, I could have been a contender. You know, I might have been able to do that. Or you see someone who had very similar background to you and they've actually done some of the things you wished you'd done, and you start to feel that guilt about it, like, oh, shoot, I didn't do that. I didn't take that risk. But it doesn't even have to be that bold. It's really in this moment-to-moment choice. We either experience existential anxiety or ontological guilt. I mean, talk about between a rock and a hard place. I mean, the point is we'll have ontological guilt or the sense of anxiety.